"Dad, can't you help that woman with the baby? What the billionaire father does is unbelievable." The grey autumn sky hung over the city as Rowan pushed the shopping cart toward the grocery store parking lot. The cold wind nipped at his cheeks, making him pull his coat a little tighter. Beside him, Emily skipped with the typical energy of a 4-year-old, her blonde hair dancing under her red beanie. "Daddy, can I hold the cookie bag? I promise not to eat any until we get home," Emily asked, her blue eyes shining with that mix of innocence and mischief that always melted Rowan's heart. "Of course, princess. But remember your promise," he replied, handing the smallest bag to his daughter, who hugged it as if it were a precious treasure. The parking lot was almost empty on that Thursday afternoon. Rowan took a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill his lungs. Days like this made him think about how much life had changed in recent years. Alone with Emily, trying to balance work and parenting, it sometimes felt like he was always running in place. As he put the groceries in the car's trunk, Rowan noticed that Emily had stopped skipping. She was standing still, staring intently at something across the street. Following his daughter's gaze, Rowan saw a young woman sitting on the sidewalk. She had disheveled hair and tattered clothes that seemed insufficient for the day's chill. In her lap, she cradled a crying baby, trying to soothe him with gentle movements, despite the evident desperation on her face. "Daddy, they're hungry. You have to help." Emily's voice came out loud and urgent, her big blue eyes wide with concern. Rowan looked away, closing the trunk with a dull thud. "We have to go, Emily. It's getting colder." But Emily had already wandered off. Before Rowan could stop her, she crossed the street and approached the woman. Rowan ran after her, his heart pounding with worry. "I'm unemployed. I need to buy milk," the woman exclaimed when she saw Emily approach, her voice thick with despair. Emily looked at her father, who had just caught up to her. "We need to help now, Daddy," she said firmly, with a determination unusual for her 4 years. Rowan looked at the crying baby and the woman's pleading eyes. Something inside him shifted. He took Emily's hand. "Ah, you're right. Let's buy some things for them." Together, they went back into the grocery store. At the entrance, Rowan grabbed a small basket and headed straight for the dairy section. "What else do you think they need besides milk, Emily?" he asked, placing a carton of whole milk in the basket. Emily's blue eyes lit up as she looked around thoughtfully. "Bread. And maybe baby food," she suggested, pointing to the baby food aisle. "Great idea," Rowan smiled, proud of his daughter's sensitivity. Together, they selected a loaf of bread, a few jars of baby food, and a box of crackers. At the express checkout, Rowan paid while Emily watched everything attentively, still holding the bag of cookies they had bought earlier. "First, we're doing something important today, you know," Rowan commented as they left the store. "We're helping someone who needs it." Emily nodded seriously, her blonde curls bouncing. "Like when my teacher said we should share our snacks with kids who forgot to bring theirs." Exactly like that, only even more important. Hand in hand, father and daughter crossed the street toward the woman, who was still trying to calm her crying baby. "Hello," Rowan said gently, as Emily held out the shopping bag. "Voice, we brought some milk, bread, and some food for the baby." "I picked the crackers," Emily added shyly. The woman looked at the bag, then at the two of them, her green eyes welling up with tears. She began, her voice trembling as she accepted the bag. "Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means." The baby seemed to sense the change in his mother's tone and momentarily stopped crying, his little blue eyes blinking in Rowan and Emily's direction. "What's his name?" Emily asked, leaning in to get a better look at the baby. The woman adjusted the blanket around the little one. "This is Liam," she said with a fragile smile. "And I'm Megan." "He's so tiny," Emily observed, fascinated. "He's 6 months old," Megan replied, her face softening as she spoke of her son. "He's usually very calm, but—" she hesitated. "We haven't been eating well for the past few days." Rowan felt a pang in his chest. "Do you have somewhere to go, a place to stay?" Megan looked down. "We were in a shelter, but it got full. They said a spot might open up tomorrow or the day after." She tried to maintain her dignity, but her voice betrayed her fear and uncertainty. "Daddy!" Emily tugged on Rowan's coat sleeve. It's getting colder. What if they get sick? Rowan looked at the sky. Darker clouds were approaching, and the wind had grown stronger. The forecast called for rain later that afternoon. There's a shelter downtown that sometimes has openings, Rowan commented, remembering a place his company had supported with donations the previous year. It's on 47 Maple Street. If you tell them you need a place for you and the baby, they usually give priority. I've already tried there, Megan answered quietly. It's full too. There was a moment of awkward silence. Rowan knew he should say goodbye and go on his way, but something held him back. Maybe it was Emily's eyes, watching him expectantly, or maybe it was something deeper, an old memory beginning to stir. Would you like to come have some hot cocoa with us? Rowan suggested, surprising himself. Just to warm up a bit. Our house is 10 minutes from here. Megan seemed to hesitate, her gaze shifting between Rowan's kind face and Emily's curious eyes. I don't want to be a bother, she said finally. You've already done so much. It's no bother at all, Rowan insisted, realizing he genuinely wanted to help. And in fact, I think Emily would love to have company for her afternoon snack. Right, princess? Emily smiled and nodded enthusiastically. We have hot chocolate at home, and you can give Liam his milk there, where it's not cold. The girl's sincerity seemed to break down Megan's last defenses. Just for a little while, then, she agreed. I meant for Liam to get warm. Rowan helped Megan to her feet, noticing how she protected the baby with careful gestures despite her own discomfort. She carried only a small, worn-out handbag, likely containing the few belongings she had managed to keep. On the way to the car, Megan told them a little more about her situation. She had lost her job as a waitress at a diner when it closed 3 months ago. Liam's father had disappeared upon learning of the pregnancy. With no family in the city and her rent overdue, she was evicted 2 weeks earlier. I've been sending out resumes every day, she explained, her voice steady despite the circumstances. But it's hard to get interviews when you don't have a permanent address or someone to watch the baby. In the car, Emily insisted on sitting in the back next to Liam, who now seemed calmer, soothed by the warmth of the vehicle. During the drive, she chatted about her preschool and her favorite cartoons, as if Megan were an old friend visiting. Rowan watched through the rearview mirror, impressed by how easily his daughter welcomed these strangers. There was no judgment or fear in her actions, only that pure empathy children possess before the world teaches them to be wary. When they arrived at the house, a small 2-bedroom home in the suburbs, Rowan noticed how Megan observed the place with a mixture of admiration and melancholy. It wasn't a luxurious house, but it represented everything she had lost. Safety, comfort, a place to call home. Let's go inside, he invited, opening the door. Emily can show you where the bathroom is if you want to freshen up a bit. Megan entered timidly, holding Liam with one arm and the grocery bag with the other. Inside the warm house, the baby seemed to relax completely, his little blue eyes now curious, exploring the new environment. Come on, Megan. I'll show you the bathroom, Emily offered, taking the woman's free hand and guiding her down the hallway with the familiarity of someone receiving a special guest. Rowan went to the kitchen to prepare the promised hot chocolate. As he warmed the milk, his thoughts drifted to the photo on his bedroom dresser, the one with Mrs. Peterson, the neighbor who used to show up with extra food when his family was going through hard times. For years, that memory had lain dormant, buried under the layers of his adult life. But now, seeing Megan and Liam, something reconnected within him. He knew what it was like to be hungry, to see desperation in his parents' eyes, to depend on the kindness of others. When Megan returned to the kitchen with Emily, her face was washed and she had combed her hair. With Liam now calmer in her arms, she looked younger, almost a teenager. Thank you for this, she said simply, sitting at the kitchen table. I didn't expect such kindness. It's nothing, Rowan replied, serving hot chocolate to Emily and Megan. Would you like to warm up some milk for Liam? Megan nodded, and while Rowan prepared the bottle, she fed Liam one of the jars of baby food they had bought. The little one ate eagerly, as if he feared the food might disappear at any moment. He likes it, Emily exclaimed, watching in fascination. Can I give him a little bit later? Megan smiled, her first genuine smile since they had met. Of course you can. He already thinks you're special. As Liam ate, they talked about simple things: the weather, the city, the stories Emily was learning in preschool. For a moment, they seemed like just friends gathered on a cold afternoon, sharing the warmth of a cozy kitchen. When Liam finished his food and drank his bottle, his little eyes began to droop. Megan rocked him gently, humming a soft melody. "He looks tired," Rowan observed. "We have a guest room, if you'd like to put him down for a nap." Megan hesitated. "Mark, we don't want to overstay our welcome. You've done so much already." "It's no trouble at all," Rowan insisted. "You can both get some rest. It's getting late and it's starting to rain. It's not good for Liam to be out in this weather." As if to confirm his words, a clap of thunder rumbled in the distance, followed by the sound of rain intensifying against the windows. "Please stay," Emily pleaded, her blue eyes supplicant. "Liam can sleep in my bed. I have lots of stuffed animals that can keep him company." Megan looked out the window at the rain, which was now falling heavily, then at Liam, who was finally sleeping peacefully, his belly full and warm. The decision was written on her face before she even spoke. "Just for tonight," she agreed. "Tomorrow morning, we'll try the shelter again." As Rowan prepared the guest room and Emily proudly showed Megan her collection of stuffed animals, the phone rang. It was from the shelter he had mentioned. He had left a message earlier when Megan was in the bathroom. "Mr. Foster, this is the administration from the Hope Shelter. We received your message about a spot for a mother and baby. Unfortunately, we still have no openings expected in the next few days due to the storm. Many families are seeking shelter." Rowan thanked them for the information and hung up. In the living room, Megan had fallen asleep on the couch with Liam nestled on her chest. Emily sat on the floor beside them, watching them tenderly as she drew in her notebook. "They're tired, Daddy," she whispered as Rowan approached. "I think they need to sleep a lot." Rowan nodded, feeling a strange emotion as he watched the scene. "Yes, Princess, they do." Grabbing a blanket from the closet, Rowan gently covered Megan and Liam. The young mother didn't even stir, too exhausted to wake. Beside her on the floor was the drawing Emily had just finished. 4 stick figures, a tall man, a blonde girl, a woman with a baby in her arms, all holding hands under a big yellow sun. That night, as the storm raged outside, Rowan once again found the photo of Mrs. Peterson on his dresser. Looking at the image, he finally understood why he had kept that memory for so many years. It wasn't just gratitude for what she had done, but a silent promise to one day do the same for someone else. That forgotten memory rekindled an old and powerful feeling. He had once been in Megan's shoes, and now finally he had the chance to pay it forward. Morning arrived with a clear sky and a gentle breeze that rustled the curtains of the room where Rowan had spent a sleepless night. Thoughts of Megan and Liam hadn't let him rest. The image of the young mother trying to protect her baby from the cold, the dignity in her eyes even amidst despair, it all haunted him through the early hours. At breakfast, Emily chattered endlessly about the baby lady as she referred to Megan. Her blue eyes sparkled with excitement as she planned all the toys she would show Liam if they met again. "What if we go back there today, Daddy?" Emily asked, licking milk from her upper lip. "To see if they're okay." Rowan hesitated. The idea had already crossed his mind, but hearing it from his daughter's lips made it more real, more urgent. "You know, I think that's a good idea," he finally replied, surprising himself with the sudden decision. "We can stop by after school." The day dragged on with excruciating slowness. At work, Rowan couldn't concentrate. His mind constantly wandered to that sidewalk, to Megan's tired face, to Liam's little blue eyes. The call he had made to the shelter the day before hadn't brought good news. There were no openings, and the waiting list was long, especially for mothers with babies. When he picked Emily up from school, he realized she had also spent the day anxious. As soon as she got in the car, she bombarded him with questions about when they would look for Megan and Liam, if they could bring more food, if they could lend some of her old toys to the baby. "We'll go right now," Rowan answered, a sense of determination growing inside him. "And yes, we can bring some things." They stopped at home just long enough for Emily to carefully select some toys that babies can chew on, and for Rowan to gather some clean clothes that might fit Megan. He also filled a bag with non-perishable food and basic toiletries. "This bear is my favorite," Emily explained, placing a worn teddy bear in the bag. "But I think Liam needs him more than I do right now." Rowan felt his chest tighten at his daughter's generous gesture. "Are you sure, Princess? You've slept with that bear since you were little." Emily nodded with determination. "I'm sure. The bear will make Liam feel safe, just like he did for me." When they arrived at the spot where they had first found Megan, Rowan felt a knot in his stomach. She was still there, sitting on the same piece of sidewalk, but she looked even more worn out than the day before. Liam was sleeping in her arms, wrapped in the same thin blanket. Rowan parked the car and took a deep breath. "Let's go, Princess." Emily hopped out of the car, firmly holding the bag of toys she had picked out. Rowan followed right behind, carrying the other bags. As they approached, they saw Megan lift her gaze, surprise and recognition flashing across her tired face. "You came back," she said softly, adjusting Liam in her arms. "So we brought some things," Rowan replied, feeling strangely nervous. "And we wanted to see how you were doing." "I brought toys for Liam," Emily announced, moving closer and sitting on the sidewalk next to Megan. "Look, this is Mr. Bear. He's very soft and good for hugging." A small smile touched Megan's lips as she watched the blonde girl carefully take the teddy bear from the bag. Emily continued to introduce each toy as if they were old friends she was entrusting to Liam's care. Rowan watched the scene, moved by his daughter's natural generosity. As she chatted away, he gathered the courage for what he had decided to do. It wasn't just about helping, it was about acknowledging something profound that had awakened inside him upon seeing Megan and Liam. "I called some shelters," he began, sitting on the other side of Megan. "They're all full with waiting lists." Megan nodded, unsurprised. "I know. I've tried them all." Rowan took a deep breath. "Last night, I couldn't stop thinking about you two, and about something that happened to me a long time ago." Emily, sensing the seriousness in her father's voice, stopped talking and began to gently stroke Liam's hair, who continued to sleep peacefully. "When I was a kid," Rowan continued, "my father lost his job. We went through hard times, very hard times. There were days we didn't have anything to eat." Megan watched him intently, her green eyes fixed on his face. "Our neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, used to show up with leftovers. At the time, I believed her. It was only later that I understood she knew exactly what she was doing, helping us without hurting our pride." Rowan paused, gathering the right words. The wind gently stirred Emily's and Megan's blonde hair, as if connecting them in that moment. "Yesterday, when I saw you, I remembered myself. When I was little, someone helped me on a tough day. Now, it's my turn to pay it forward." Megan swallowed hard, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "What do you mean?" "I want to invite you and Liam to stay at our house," Rowan replied simply. "Not for one night, but for as long as you need until you can get back on your feet. Find a job, a place of your own." Tears now streamed freely down Megan's face. She hugged Liam tightly against her chest, as if the baby's small body gave her strength. "I can't accept that," she whispered. "It's too much." "Please, say yes," Emily interrupted, her blue eyes pleading. "It will be so fun to have you and Liam there. I can show you all my toys, and we can watch cartoons together and play in the garden." "Emily," Rowan interrupted her gently. "Let's give Megan a minute to think." "Okay." Emily nodded, but continued to look hopefully at Megan, her small fingers still stroking Liam's fine hair. The baby stirred in his sleep, as if feeling the gentle touch. Megan looked at the baby in her arms, then at the eager girl beside her, and finally at Rowan. "Why would you do this for us? You barely know us." Rowan smiled, a smile that came from somewhere deep inside him. "Sometimes you don't need to know someone to know it's the right thing to do." A moment passed, long enough for a dry leaf to dance between them, carried by the wind. Then, slowly, Megan nodded. "Only until I find a job," she agreed, her voice choked with emotion. "And I'll help with anything I can around the house. I don't want to be a burden." "You could never be," Rowan replied simply. At that moment, Liam woke up, his little blue eyes blinking sleepily. Seeing Emily so close, He reached out a chubby little hand, grabbing a lock of her blonde hair. "Look, Daddy," Emily laughed, delighted. "He likes me." "Of course he does." Megan smiled through her tears. "You're a very special girl." Rowan helped Megan up, holding her few belongings while she settled Liam in her arms. Together, they walked to the car, a small group that, to any casual observer, could easily look like a family. The ride back home was filled with Emily's excited chatter, detailing all the plans she had for her new house guests. Megan listened with a soft smile, occasionally exchanging glances with Rowan in the rearview mirror, glances full of gratitude and something more, a silent connection neither was ready to name. In the back seat, Liam played with the teddy bear Emily had given him, his curious little eyes exploring his new furry friend. Emily told him stories about all the adventures the bear had already been on, and all the new ones they would have together. Rowan watched it all in the rearview mirror, feeling a strange certainty that somehow his house, which had long felt like just a place to live, would finally become a home again. Rowan's car pulled into the driveway of the small two-bedroom house in the quiet suburb. For a moment, no one moved, as if they all needed a second to process the transition happening in their lives. "We're here," Emily finally announced, unbuckling her seatbelt with hurried fingers. "Come on, Liam, I'll show you everything." Rowan watched through the rearview mirror as Megan took a deep breath, her green eyes scanning the house's facade with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. Liam, awake now, babbled happily in the back seat, oblivious to the gravity of the moment. "Sass, it's not much," Rowan commented, wanting to ease the visible tension in Megan's shoulders. "But it's cozy." "It's perfect," Megan replied, her voice almost a whisper. They got out of the car, Rowan carrying the few bags with Megan's belongings while she held Liam. Emily skipped ahead, leading the way like a proud little hostess. "Yeah, this is the living room," she explained as they entered, spinning with her arms outstretched. "Over there is the kitchen, and the hallway leads to the bedrooms. Mine is the one with stars on the door." Megan looked around, taking in every detail. The house was simple but welcoming. Comfortable sofas, a few photographs on the walls, books and magazines organized on shelves. She noticed that, despite being clean, there was something impersonal about the space, as if it lacked a warmer touch. "I'll show you where you'll be staying," Rowan said, guiding them down the hall. "I set up the guest room this morning. It's not very big, but it's perfect," Megan repeated as he opened the door, revealing a simple room with a double bed, a nightstand, and a small closet. "I put up the portable crib Emily used when she was smaller," Rowan explained, pointing to the small crib set up in the corner. "I hope it works for Liam." "It'll be great," Megan nodded, placing Liam in the crib to test it out. The baby immediately grabbed the sides, trying to pull himself up, his blue eyes exploring the new environment with curiosity. "I helped Daddy find the crib in the attic," Emily exclaimed proudly. "And I picked out these rocket ship sheets because boys like rockets, right?" Megan smiled, touched by the girl's enthusiasm. "I'm sure he'll love the rockets, Emily." "Well," Rowan interrupted gently, "I'll let you two get settled. The bathroom is at the end of the hall. Make yourselves at home." When Rowan and Emily left, Megan sat on the bed, suddenly overwhelmed by the situation. She looked at her hands, rough and dry after weeks on the streets, and at the clean, tidy room around her. The contrast was almost painful. Shame hit her like a wave. She shouldn't be here, invading this family's life. No matter how kind they were, she and Liam were intruders, walking reminders of everything that could go wrong in life. Liam, as if sensing his mother's emotional turmoil, began to whimper in the crib. Megan picked him up immediately, holding him close. "It's going to be okay, my love," she whispered, more to herself than to the baby. "Sai will only stay as long as we need to. Soon we'll have our own place." After changing Liam's diaper and organizing their few clothes in the closet, Megan decided the best way to show her gratitude was to make herself useful. With Liam balanced on her hip, she left the room, determined to find some way to contribute. In the kitchen, she found Rowan trying to decide what to make for lunch, looking lost at the inside of the refrigerator. "Can I help?" Megan offered shyly. Rowan turned, surprised and relieved. "That would be great. I have to admit, cooking isn't my strong suit." "It's mine," Megan smiled, feeling more comfortable in familiar territory. I used to work in a diner before everything. The fridge is a bit empty, Rowan admitted, scratching the back of his neck. We usually order takeout or eat something simple. Megan examined the contents of the fridge and cupboards, her mind already planning possibilities. There are enough ingredients for a vegetable soup with rice. Simple but nutritious. Sounds perfect, Rowan smiled. Emily loves soup. I can watch Liam while you cook, Emily offered, walking into the kitchen with a picture book. I'll read him stories. Megan hesitated, instinctively protective, but Emily's hopeful gaze convinced her. Okay. Stay in the living room where I can see you, all right? With Liam entertained by Emily's animated storytelling, Megan got to work. She washed her hands and organized the ingredients, moving around the kitchen with an efficiency that surprised Rowan. She wiped down surfaces, washed vegetables, and soon the aroma of sautéed onions and garlic filled the air. So you really know what you're doing, Rowan commented, watching her dice carrots into perfect cubes. My grandmother taught me, Megan explained, not taking her eyes off the cutting board. So she used to say that knowing how to cook well is like having a superpower, always useful no matter the situation. Your grandmother sounds like she was a wise woman. She was, Megan confirmed, a faint, nostalgic smile on her lips. She raised me after my parents split up. Unfortunately, she passed away 3 years ago. Rowan nodded, understanding better why Megan had ended up on the streets, with no family to support her in difficult times. From the living room came Emily's laughter and Liam's delighted gurgles. Megan peeked periodically, always finding the two exactly where they were supposed to be. Emily sitting on the rug with Liam between her legs, showing him the colorful pictures in the book with extraordinary patience. She's great with him, Megan commented, adding rice to the gently simmering soup. Emily always wanted a little brother, Rowan revealed. My wife and I, we planned on having more kids, but... He left the sentence unfinished, the weight of loss still evident in his voice. Megan nodded, respecting the emotional space the unfinished sentence required. The soup will be ready in 20 minutes, she said, gently changing the subject. Lunch was a revelation. The simple but flavorful soup was met with enthusiasm by everyone. Even Liam, whom Megan fed with small spoonfuls of strained broth, seemed to enjoy the homemade meal. This is amazing, Rowan praised, helping himself to a second bowl. We haven't eaten something this good at home in a long time. It's so yummy, I can't even tell there are vegetables in it, Emily exclaimed, making the adults laugh. Megan felt her cheeks warm with the compliments. It was strange how something so simple, preparing a meal for other people, could bring so much satisfaction. For months, her main concern had been getting any food for Liam, often sacrificing her own meals. Now, seeing everyone eat something she had prepared brought an almost forgotten sense of normalcy. After lunch, while Rowan insisted on washing the dishes, saying she had already done enough, Megan returned to the guest room to organize it better. She folded the small pile of clothes Rowan had lent her, arranged Liam's crib more comfortably, and made the bed with tightly tucked corners. Small gestures to turn the impersonal space into something more welcoming. In the living room, Emily had built a sort of fort with pillows and blankets, where she and Liam were playing safely. The baby, stimulated by the girl's constant attention, was laughing more than Megan had seen him laugh in weeks. Look, Megan, Emily called out, excited. Sai taught Liam how to clap. As if to demonstrate, Emily clapped her hands in front of the baby, who after a moment of concentrated contemplation, clapped his chubby little hands together, letting out a laugh of pure joy. Incredible, Megan exclaimed, genuinely impressed. He's never done that before. Really, I'm like the first person to ever teach him something. Emily's eyes shone with the importance of the responsibility. It seems so, Megan confirmed, sitting on the floor with them. You're a great teacher. Can I teach him more things? Like how to talk and walk and draw and everything? I'm sure he would love to learn from you. The afternoon passed in an almost surreal calm for Megan. While the children played, she continued her silent mission of gratitude through small tasks, organizing the pantry, wiping down the kitchen counters, sweeping the living room floor. Each completed task lessened her feeling of being an intruder as if she were earning her place in this space. Rowan, working on his laptop at the kitchen table, discreetly observed the subtle changes happening in his home. The sounds were different, the soft murmur of Megan humming as she worked, Emily's more frequent laughter, Liam's excited gurgles. The smells, too. The house rarely had the scent of freshly cooked food, of lemon-scented cleaning products, of a life being fully lived. Even more fascinating was the transformation in Emily. His daughter had always been cheerful, but now there was a different energy to her behavior, more focused, more centered, as if she had found a purpose in the task of entertaining and caring for Liam. She laughed more, talked more, shone more brightly. "Megan, can I help you make dinner?" Emily asked late in the afternoon, surprising both Megan and Rowan. Emily rarely showed interest in household chores. "Of course," Megan replied, exchanging a surprised look with Rowan. "How about you help me make macaroni and cheese?" "Can I grate the cheese?" Emily asked enthusiastically. "You sure can. I'll show you how to do it safely." Rowan watched the two head to the kitchen, Megan carrying Liam on one arm while patiently explaining to Emily how to hold the grater. There was a naturalness to the scene that made his heart ache in a strange, almost painful, but not entirely unpleasant way. Something was changing inside the house. That was undeniable. The silence that had settled after his wife's death, only partially filled by Emily's presence, was now retreating before a new symphony of everyday sounds. The doors that had remained closed, literally and metaphorically, were now opening, allowing light and fresh air into long-forgotten spaces. But it wasn't just the house that was changing. Rowan felt something transforming within himself as well. A tension he hadn't even realized he was carrying began to dissolve, a feeling he had forgotten, something like hope, like possibilities, was starting to awaken. That evening, after a lively dinner where Emily proudly announced that she had grated all the cheese, except for the part Daddy grated when I got tired, Rowan found himself standing in the dark hallway, listening. From one side came Emily's quiet breathing, already asleep. From the other, the soft whisper of Megan singing a lullaby to Liam. The once silent house was beginning to change. The walls that had held only echoes of a past happiness now resonated with new sounds, new lives, new possibilities. In his room later, Rowan stared at the ceiling, identifying the strange feeling growing inside him. It wasn't just gratitude for having helped someone in need. It wasn't just satisfaction at seeing Emily so happy with her new friends. It was something deeper, more personal. A recognition that perhaps, by opening the doors of his home to Megan and Liam, he was also opening doors within himself, doors he had kept closed for too long. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something they all needed. The once silent house begins to change, and with it, so do its inhabitants. The rain had been falling incessantly for hours, turning the yard into small, shimmering puddles under the yellowish glow of the outdoor lights. The sound of the drops against the windows created a cozy barrier between the house and the world outside, as if nothing beyond these walls mattered that night. In the living room, Emily lay on her stomach on the rug, focused on her drawings. Colored pencils were scattered around her like sunbeams, her tongue stuck between her teeth in a sign of absolute concentration. Liam was asleep in his room, finally overcome by exhaustion after a particularly busy day. Rowan watched his daughter from the kitchen doorway, a mug of hot tea in his hands. 2 weeks had passed since Megan and Liam arrived. 2 weeks that felt like both an instant and an eternity. Such was the transformation they had brought to his routine. "She has a lot of talent," Megan's soft voice sounded beside him. She held her own mug, the steam rising in faint spirals. "She gets it from her mother," Rowan replied automatically, then felt that familiar pang in his chest, less painful now, more like a gentle longing. Megan nodded, not pushing the subject. She had learned to recognize the small nuances in Rowan's voice when the topic was Claire, his late wife. In the first few days, he barely mentioned her name. Natty little stories and memories occasionally surfaced, like shy flowers breaking through the soil after a long winter. "How about we sit for a bit?" Megan suggested, pointing to the kitchen table. "Oh, the soup will still take half an hour to be ready." Rowan agreed, following her to the cozy kitchen which, like the rest of the house, had undergone a subtle transformation in recent weeks. Small touches from Megan were everywhere. A vase with wildflowers picked from the garden. Colorful dish towels hung neatly, spices organized in clear jars. The kitchen, once merely functional, now seemed alive. They sat facing each other, the sound of the rain filling the comfortable silence between them. Through the open doorway, they could see Emily still engrossed in her world of colors and shapes. "She's drawing our family," Rowan commented, watching his daughter. She's been making a lot of these lately." Megan felt her heart ache at the word family. It was dangerous to get used to this, to the sense of belonging that grew with each passing day. Dangerous for her, for Liam, perhaps even for Rowan and Emily when the inevitable time to leave came. "Rowan," she began, her fingers tightening slightly on the mug. "We need to talk about how much longer we'll be staying. I don't want to overstay our welcome and—" "You're not overstaying anything," Rowan interrupted gently. "You two have been a blessing to this house." The sincerity in his voice made Megan lift her eyes to meet his. There was something there, a rarely revealed vulnerability, that made her swallow the words of protest on the tip of her tongue. "It wasn't like this before," Rowan continued, looking at the amber liquid in his mug. "The house, it was just a place to sleep, to store things. It wasn't a home, not since Claire." He paused, taking a deep breath, and Megan waited patiently, giving him the space he needed. "It's been 3 years now," Rowan began again, his voice firmer. "Cancer. It was fast and devastating, the kind of thing you hear happening to other people, never to yourself." "I'm so sorry," Megan said softly, the phrase so inadequate for the magnitude of the loss, but necessary nonetheless. "In the beginning, I was just on autopilot. Wake up, take care of Emily, work, sleep, repeat like a robot." Rowan gave a sad smile. "So I didn't let myself feel much, you know. It was safer that way." Megan nodded. She knew that survival strategy well. "Claire was light," he continued, the words flowing more easily now. "One of those people who walks into a room and everything gets brighter. She had an opinion on everything, laughed loudly, cried at TV commercials. After she was gone, it felt like someone had turned down the volume and color of the world." A flash of lightning briefly illuminated the kitchen, followed by the rumble of thunder. In the living room, Emily lifted her head for a moment, then went back to her drawing, apparently satisfied that she was safe inside. "The worst part wasn't the pain," Rowan confessed, his voice almost a whisper now. "It was the absence, the silence in the places she used to fill with words, laughter, even our arguments." He chuckled softly. Claire had quite a temper when provoked. Megan smiled, imagining this woman she had never met but whose footprints were still everywhere in this house, in these lives. "The emotional absence was the hardest on Emily, I think," Rowan continued. "I was there physically, did all the practical things, meals, baths, school, but emotionally, it was like a part of me had died with Claire, a part that Emily desperately needed." "Children are incredibly resilient," Megan offered, "and you've clearly done a wonderful job with her. Emily is sweet, kind, empathetic. That doesn't happen by accident." Rowan smiled, grateful for the compliment. "I've been trying, but watching you with her these past weeks, I realized how much I was still holding back, how afraid I was to open up completely again." The confession hung between them, laden with implicit meanings. Megan took a sip of tea, organizing her own thoughts. "I understand fear," she said finally. "When I found out I was pregnant, Liam's father's first reaction was to suggest an abortion. When I refused, he just disappeared, blocked my number, moved out of the apartment we shared, cut off all contact." She shrugged, as if downplaying the importance, but her eyes betrayed the pain of rejection. "A mutual colleague later told me he had moved to another state, apparently to start over." "What a coward," Rowan muttered, indignation clear in his voice. "Starting for a while, I thought I could do it all on my own," Megan continued. "I had my job at the diner, some savings, but then the restaurant closed, the rent went up, and the savings ran out much faster than I expected." She toyed with the rim of her mug, her eyes fixed on circular motions. "The worst part wasn't the practical difficulties, you know. It was the loneliness. Being pregnant, then with a newborn, and having no one to share every little moment with. Every kick, every smile, every worry in the middle of the night. I get that, Rowan nodded. After Claire, there were times when Emily would do something adorable or funny, and I'd instinctively turn to share it with someone who wasn't there anymore. Their eyes met, a mutual recognition of different but equally profound losses. The most ironic part, Megan continued, is that when you're in a situation like mine, homeless, I with a baby, people tend to look through you, not at you, as if it's contagious, or as if you did something to deserve it. I did that, Rowan admitted, ashamed. The first day, Faz, when Emily saw you, my instinct was to look away, to move on. But you didn't, Megan smiled softly. You came back, you helped. Thanks to my 4-year-old daughter, who apparently has more wisdom than I do, Rowan laughed, looking fondly at Emily in the living room. Children haven't learned to build barriers yet, Megan observed. How they see a need and they respond to it without complications. Another clap of thunder, closer now, followed by the sound of the intensifying rain. The storm was getting stronger, but inside the brightly lit kitchen, the atmosphere remained cozy, almost intimate. What was your life like before? Rowan asked, genuinely curious. Before Liam, I mean, Megan smiled, grateful for the chance to talk about the person she had been, not just her current circumstances. Pretty normal, actually. I grew up with my grandmother after my parents split. They were very young when they had me and just weren't ready. I studied until my sophomore year of college, English literature. I had to stop when my grandmother got sick. I needed to work full-time to help with medical bills. Did you enjoy your studies? Rowan asked. Loved it, Megan replied, her eyes shining with the memory. I planned to be a teacher one day. I still do, in a way. It's just a dream deferred, not abandoned, Rowan corrected gently. No, Megan agreed, not abandoned. The conversation flowed naturally after that, sometimes paused by moments of quiet reflection, other times accelerated by shared memories and small confessions. They talked about favorite books, movies they loved, places they dreamed of visiting. They talked about fears and hopes, about small joys and accumulated disappointments. The initial formality that still existed between them, despite their daily cohabitation, began to dissolve, revealing two people who, despite different paths, shared much more than they had imagined. At some point, the rain subsided to a gentle drizzle, and Emily, tired of drawing, came into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. Is it late, Daddy? A little bit, Princess, Rowan replied, glancing at the clock. It was almost 9, well past Emily's normal bedtime. Can I show you my drawing before I go to bed? Of course, Rowan smiled, as Emily ran back to fetch her masterpiece. She returned quickly, proudly holding a colorful sheet of paper. Look, it's us. Rowan and Megan leaned in to see the typical drawing of a 4-year-old, 4 stick figures under what looked like a large rainbow. 2 larger figures, clearly Rowan and Megan, were holding hands. A smaller figure, Emily, was holding what could only be Liam, represented as little more than a circle with eyes and a smile. It's beautiful, Emily, Megan said, genuinely touched. You drew us holding hands, Rowan observed, pointing to the adult figures. Emily nodded seriously. Like you and Mommy used to. The innocent comment hung in the air, charged with meaning. Rowan cast a quick glance at Megan, who had blushed slightly. It's time for bed, young lady, Rowan said, standing up and lifting Emily into his arms. Say good night to Megan. Good night, Megan, Emily obeyed. But instead of just waving, she leaned over to give the woman a kiss on the cheek. Thanks for making the yummy soup. You're welcome, sweetie, Megan replied, her voice slightly choked with sudden emotion. Sleep well. Rowan carried Emily to her room, his heart full of feelings he couldn't quite name. He helped her brush her teeth, put on her pajamas, and finally tucked her into bed under the unicorn-themed blanket. Daddy, Emily called out as he was about to leave. Can I tell you a secret? Of course, Princess, Rowan answered, sitting on the edge of the bed. Emily sat up and nestled into her father's lap, her blue eyes serious in the soft light of the lamp. Megan is like Mommy, she whispered, as if sharing a precious treasure. She kisses my forehead, helps me with my hair. Her small fingers played with the sleeve of Rowan's shirt. I wish she would stay. Rowan felt a lump in his throat. his daughter's simple words hitting him with the force of a revelation. For 3 years, he had tried in every way to fill the void left by Claire in Emily's life. He had read books on helping children cope with grief, consulted therapists, created comforting routines, and yet something always seemed to be missing. Now, looking into his daughter's hopeful eyes, it finally clicked. It wasn't just that Megan filled the house. She had brought light back to his daughter. That spark of carefree joy that Emily had before her mother's death, that trust in the world as a safe and loving place. "You really like her, don't you?" Rowan asked softly. Emily nodded emphatically. "And Liam, too." "He's cute, even when he makes noise at night." Rowan smiled, running a hand through his daughter's blonde hair. "Yes, he is cute. Can they stay with us forever, Daddy?" The question was simple, direct, filled with childish hope. "I don't know, Princess," Rowan answered honestly. "That depends on a lot of things." "What things?" "Well, Megan might want to have her own house one day. She's looking for a job, remember? When she finds one, she might want her own space." Emily frowned, considering this undesirable possibility. "But you can ask her to stay," she suggested, with the simple logic of children. "She likes us too, I know she does. I saw her smiling when you weren't looking." Rowan felt an unexpected warmth rise up his neck. "You did you?" "Uh-huh," Emily confirmed with the absolute certainty of someone holding important knowledge. "And you smile more now, too. Before, you only smiled a little, just with your mouth. Now you smile with your eyes too, like Mommy used to say was a real smile." Rowan hugged his daughter tightly, hiding the sudden emotion that threatened to overflow. How did children manage to see so clearly what adults tried so desperately to ignore? "Time for sleep, little one," he said finally, tucking her in again. "We'll think more about this tomorrow, okay?" "Okay," Emily agreed, already yawning. "But don't forget to think about asking Megan to stay." "I won't forget," Rowan promised, kissing her forehead. "Good night, Princess." "Good night, Daddy." As he closed the bedroom door, Rowan paused for a moment in the dark hallway, processing the conversation. Through the ajar kitchen door, he could see Megan's back as she stirred the soup on the stove. Humming a soft melody he didn't recognize, the yellowish kitchen light enveloped her like a halo, creating a scene of domesticity so perfect it almost hurt to watch. The bond that had begun so unexpectedly, a chance encounter on a cold day, an impulsive act of kindness, had strengthened over the past weeks, transforming into something deeper, more significant. And on that rainy night, between confidences exchanged in the kitchen and innocent truths spoken by a child's lips, Rowan began to realize that what was growing between them was perhaps more than gratitude, more than friendship. Perhaps it was the beginning of a second chance for all of them. The first light of dusk painted the sky in shades of orange and pink as Rowan's car pulled into the driveway. 5:15 p.m. The neighbors, accustomed to seeing him arrive well after 7, discreetly raised their eyebrows from behind their curtains. It was the third time that week he had come home from work early. Inside the house, the aroma of roast chicken with herbs filled the air. Megan moved around the kitchen with the familiarity of someone who had always belonged in that space, arranging a dish of potatoes while checking the seasoning on the salad. Liam, sitting in his makeshift high chair, happily banged a wooden spoon against the table, creating an offbeat rhythm that made Emily laugh as she folded napkins into the shape of little boats. The sound of the door opening was followed by Rowan's voice. "I'm home." "We're in the kitchen," Megan replied, exchanging a conspiratorial look with Emily, who smiled at the secret shared between them. Rowan appeared in the doorway, his tie already loosened, his face tired but serene. His eyes scanned the domestic scene, Megan taking the chicken out of the oven, Emily finishing setting the table, Liam with his symphony of spoon against wood, and an involuntary smile softened his features. "Wow, that smells wonderful," he commented, approaching to kiss the top of Emily's head. "So Megan taught me how to fold napkins," the girl announced proudly, showing off her creation. "Look, this one's for you. It's a boat that can sail on seas of gravy." Rowan laughed, setting down his briefcase and rolling up his shirt sleeves. "Can I help with anything?" A month ago, that question would have seemed formal, the polite offer of a host to a guest. Now it sounded natural, part of an established routine between them. "Could you pour water in the glasses?" Megan asked, transferring the chicken to a serving platter. There was no shyness in her request, no awkwardness. It was the request of someone who knew her place in that kitchen, in that house. Rowan took the pitcher from the fridge and began to fill the glasses. "How was your day?" As Emily excitedly recounted her school adventures and how she had stood up for a classmate against a bully during recess, Rowan and Megan exchanged glances over the girl's head. Glances of complicity, of mutual understanding, of something deeper that was beginning to blossom between them. "And then the teacher said my drawing of our family was the most colorful in the class," Emily concluded, helping Rowan place the glasses on the table. "Our family?" Rowan asked softly, noticing how his daughter naturally included Megan and Liam in the definition. "Yes," Emily confirmed without hesitation. "Me, you, Megan, and Liam. I drew us at the park with ice cream." The silence that followed was not awkward or tense. It was a silence full of meaning, like a blank space between important words necessary for their meaning to be fully absorbed. Rowan looked at Megan, who pretended to be busy with the gravy, but the blush on her cheeks revealed that she had heard. "Let's eat," Megan finally announced, bringing the platter to the table. "Before it gets cold." They all sat down, a ritual that now repeated every evening, Rowan at the head of the table, Emily to his right, Megan to his left with Liam beside her. A configuration that had emerged naturally, without discussion or planning. "This is delicious," Rowan praised after the first bite. "You should open a restaurant." Megan smiled, cutting a tiny piece of chicken for Liam, who had already started experimenting with solid foods. "Actually, I have a job interview tomorrow." "Really?" Rowan asked, genuinely interested. "Where?" "At the Greenleaf Cafe downtown," Megan replied, a note of hope in her voice. "It's a kitchen assistant position, nothing too glamorous, but the hours are good, from 9 to 3. And they'll let me bring Liam as long as he stays in the back office." "That's great," Rowan exclaimed, his enthusiasm sincere. "I'm sure you'll get it. They'd be crazy not to hire someone who cooks like you." "And I can watch Liam when you're both at work," Emily offered with adult-like seriousness. "When I get home from school, of course." The adults exchanged smiles at the child's generous offer. "Thank you, Emily, but you already have your important job, doing well in school," Megan replied gently. "And besides, Liam will be with me at the cafe." The dinner continued with light conversation about the day, plans for the weekend, and a discussion about which movie they would watch on Friday's movie night. The naturalness of the interaction, the absence of tension or formality, spoke of a profound transformation that had occurred in that house. Rowan discreetly observed how Megan interacted with Emily, the way she paid full attention when the girl spoke, how she gently corrected her when necessary, how she celebrated her small achievements. There was nothing forced or artificial in these interactions. Megan wasn't trying to replace Claire or score points with him. She was simply being herself, patient, caring, genuinely interested, and Emily flourished under this attention. His daughter had always been a happy child, even after losing her mother. But now there was a different quality to her joy, more expansive, more confident, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from her small shoulders. After dinner, another silent routine was established. Rowan washed the dishes while Megan dried and put them away. Emily helped clear the table, and Liam watched everything from his high chair, occasionally clapping when something caught his attention. "I'm going to give this little guy a bath," Megan announced when they were done, picking Liam up. "He smells like chicken and gravy all over." "Can I help?" Emily asked, already getting up to follow. "Of course. I need an official bubble assistant." Megan smiled, extending her free hand to the girl. Rowan was left alone in the kitchen, feeling the cozy silence of the house. From down the hall came Emily's laughter and Liam's excited squeals as the bathwater was prepared. Simple, everyday sounds that had become the soundtrack of his life in recent months. The house breathes with ease. It was the only way to describe what he felt, as if the physical space itself had recovered something vital that had been missing. The once empty and silent corners now seemed filled not just with objects or people, but with a more subtle presence. the feeling of life being truly lived, not just survived. A home is reborn without fanfare. There was no dramatic moment of transformation, no grand revelation or conscious decision, just small daily changes, subtle adjustments that, when added up, created something entirely new from the fragments of what had existed before. Later, with Liam already asleep and Emily finishing her homework at the living room table, Rowan and Megan sat on the back porch, enjoying the mild early autumn evening. These had become their favorite moments of the day, that quiet interval where they could talk without interruptions, sharing thoughts, dreams, and worries. "Nervous about the interview tomorrow?" Rowan asked, observing Megan's delicate profile against the starry sky. "A little," she admitted. "It's been a while since I've worked formally. I'm afraid I might be rusty." "You'll do wonderfully," Rowan assured her. "You're talented, hard-working, and anyone with eyes can see that in 5 minutes of conversation." Megan smiled, touched by the compliment. "Thank you. It means a lot to me. All of this." She made a vague gesture encompassing the house, the situation, the moment. "Your trust, your generosity. You gave Liam and me so much more than a roof over our heads. You gave us our dignity back." Rowan felt a tightness in his chest at the sincerity in her voice. "You two gave this house much more than I could ever repay," he replied softly. "You brought life back here." Their gazes met in the dim light, heavy with unspoken words come with feelings not yet fully acknowledged. For a moment, Rowan thought about leaning closer, about finally giving voice to what had been growing between them. But something held him back, not fear exactly, but a kind of reverence for the delicate balance they had built, for the meaningful silence that still needed to exist between them. Some silences, after all, need to be respected before they can be filled with words. The early morning was broken by a different kind of cry. Not Liam's familiar call for food or attention, but something sharper, more urgent. Rowan woke instantly, his parental instincts alerting him that something was wrong. In the hallway, he found Megan already up, holding Liam against her chest, her face pale with worry. "He's burning up with fever," she said, her voice trembling. "It started an hour ago and it's getting worse. I've never seen him like this before." Rowan came closer, touching the baby's forehead. His skin was scorching, his little face flushed, his normally bright blue eyes now dull and listless. "We're taking him to the hospital," he decided immediately. "I'll get the car. Can you get him ready quickly?" Megan nodded, relief visible on her face at Rowan's calm decisiveness. "What about Emily?" "I'll wake her up. She's coming with us," Rowan replied, already heading to his daughter's room. We can't leave her alone." 15 minutes later, they were all in the car, Megan in the back seat with Liam in her arms, murmuring words of comfort to the feverish baby. Emily, still sleepy but understanding the gravity of the situation, sat quietly in the passenger seat. At the hospital, Rowan took control of the situation with a quiet efficiency that surprised even himself. He filled out forms, explained symptoms, and ensured they were seen quickly. When a doctor finally examined Liam, diagnosing a severe ear infection that had caused the high fever, it was Rowan who asked the right questions, who jotted down medication instructions. During the 3 hours they spent in the waiting room, waiting for the intravenous antibiotics to take effect, Rowan never left Megan's side for a moment. He held her hand when she cried with worry, brought her coffee when exhaustion threatened to overcome her, and distracted Emily with improvised games to maintain calm in the sterile, impersonal room. When they were finally discharged near dawn, Liam was sleeping peacefully in Megan's arms, his fever under control, the color gradually returning to his little face. "He's going to be fine," the doctor assured them, handing over the prescription for the medication they were to continue at home. "Keep up the treatment for 10 days, even if the symptoms disappear sooner." On the way back, with Emily finally asleep in the back seat and Liam breathing peacefully against Megan's chest, an exhausted but relieved silence filled the car. "Thank you," Megan said at last, her voice almost a whisper. "I don't know what I would have done without you tonight." Rowan glanced briefly in the rearview mirror, meeting her eyes. "We're a family," he replied simply. "It's what families do." The word hung between them, heavy with meaning, with promise, with possibilities. Megan didn't answer, but her reflection in the mirror showed a silent tear tracing a path down her cheek. When they arrived home, the sun was beginning to rise. Rowan carried a sleeping Emily to her room while Megan settled Liam in his crib, checking his temperature one more time before finally relaxing. They met again in the kitchen, both exhausted but unable to sleep immediately after the night's adrenaline. Rowan made tea for them both, his movements automatic in his fatigue. "You were amazing tonight," Megan commented, gratefully accepting the warm mug. "So calm, so present." Rowan shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. Anyone would have done the same. "No," Megan insisted, her eyes meeting his with intensity. "Not anyone. You." She took a deep breath, as if gathering courage for something difficult. "Rowan, I need to tell you something. Something I've been thinking about for a while." Something in the seriousness of her voice made Rowan sit up straighter, a sense of apprehension growing in his chest. "You've already done so much for us," Megan continued, her voice trembling slightly. "For me and for Liam. You gave us a home when we had nothing, treated us with dignity, with kindness." She swallowed hard, her hands clutching the mug as if for strength. "It's become too much. It's time for us to go." The words hit Rowan like a physical blow. For a moment, he was speechless, unable to process what he was hearing. "What are you talking about?" he finally managed to ask. "You're not a burden, you never have been." "You say that because you're a good man," Megan smiled sadly. "But we can't keep going on like this indefinitely. You opened your home in a time of need, and I'll be eternally grateful for that. But now, with this potential job, it's time for us to go our own way." "Megan, please," Rowan began, an unexpected desperation coloring his voice. "There's no rush. You can stay as long as you need. Emily loves having you here, and you have been more than generous," Megan completed for him, avoiding what he really wanted to say. "But it's the right thing to do. For all of us." Rowan wanted to protest more, wanted to tell her what he truly felt, how her presence had transformed not just his house, but his entire life. How the thought of her leaving caused a physical ache he hadn't felt since losing Claire. How Emily had finally regained that spark that had been missing from her eyes. But something in the determination of Megan's gaze stopped him. There was a dignity in her decision that he couldn't challenge without diminishing her. "If that's what you really want," he said at last, the words heavy on his tongue. "It's what needs to be done," Megan corrected softly. The silence that followed was not like the other comfortable silences they had shared. This one was laden with sorrow, with regret for words unsaid, for chances not taken. Neither of them noticed the small figure in the dark hallway. Emily, awakened by the sound of voices, had quietly approached the kitchen, catching fragments of the conversation. Now, her blue eyes wide with understanding and pain, she slowly backed away, a small hand covering her mouth to stifle a sob. Back in her room, curled up under the covers, Emily cried silently, tears no one saw streaming down her childish face. Once again, someone she loved was leaving. Once again, the happiness she had found was being taken from her. And so, in the same house where silence had finally found meaning, a new silence settled, the silence of hearts that didn't know how to say what they truly felt, of unconfronted fears, of dreams almost within reach, but not yet touched. The morning arrived with an almost offensive brightness, rays of sunlight streaming through the curtains as if it were an ordinary day, as if the world wasn't about to change for the inhabitants of that house. Rowan had slept poorly, alternating between moments of anguished awareness and restless dreams where he ran down endless hallways. In the kitchen, Megan was already up, making pancakes, Emily's favorite. Her movements were precise and familiar, the result of months living in that space, knowing every corner, every utensil. 2 small suitcases and a baby bag waited in the hallway, a silent reminder of what was to come. "Good morning," Rowan said, his voice hoarse from a sleepless night. Megan turned, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning, coffee?" The forced normality of the interaction was almost painful, as if following the routine could somehow postpone the inevitable. "Please," he replied, sitting at the table they had shared so many times. "Is Emily still asleep?" "Yes," Megan confirmed, pouring him coffee. And Liam too, miraculously. Maybe it's better this way, to give them a few more hours of normalcy. Rowan nodded, unable to find the right words. In the 3 days since Megan had announced her decision to leave, they had discussed practical arrangements. Where she would go, a temporary shelter for single mothers, until her new job at the cafe allowed her to rent a small apartment. How they would stay in touch. He had insisted on helping her financially until she was settled, something she reluctantly accepted only as a loan. What they hadn't discussed were feelings, the real emotions pulsing beneath the surface of polite conversations about logistics. The growing weight in their chests every time they looked at each other and realized their days together were numbered. "I tried to explain to Emily last night," Rowan commented, turning the mug in his hands. "About you two leaving. How did she take it?" Megan asked, turning her attention back to the sizzling pancakes on the griddle. "She was quiet," Rowan replied, concern evident in his voice. "Too quiet. That's not like her." Megan nodded, biting her lower lip. "She's strong. She'll understand in time, just like the rest of us, right?" Rowan tried to smile, but the result was just a painful twitch of his lips. The ensuing silence was broken by small, hesitant footsteps. Emily appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas, her messy blonde hair framing a face unusually serious for her 4 years. "Good morning, Princess," Rowan called, opening his arms to welcome her. To his surprise, Emily didn't run into his embrace as usual. Instead, she walked over to Megan and just stood there, watching her flip pancakes with the intense concentration of someone memorizing every detail. "I made your favorites," Megan said softly, crouching down to be at the girl's eye level. "Oise with chocolate chips." Emily nodded without a word, her blue eyes huge and solemn. Then, without warning, she ran out of the kitchen. Megan and Rowan exchanged worried glances, but before they could react, the girl returned, holding something to her chest. "I made this for you," Emily announced, holding out a carefully folded piece of paper. "So you don't forget us." Megan accepted the paper with slightly trembling hands, carefully unfolding it. It was a drawing made with colored pencils and markers, more elaborate than her usual work, evidence of hours of concentrated effort. It showed 4 figures on a picnic under a large tree, Rowan with his brown hair, Emily with her blonde curls, Megan holding a smiling Liam. In the sky, a bright yellow sun and colorful birds. In the bottom corner, in uneven childish letters, it said, "My family." Megan felt the air leave her lungs, as if she had taken a physical blow. She looked at Emily, whose eyes were now shining with unshed tears. "I wanted it to be forever," the little girl said simply, her voice small but firm. Something inside Megan broke. All the carefully constructed barriers, all the logical reasons she had lined up to justify her departure, suddenly seemed fragile in the face of a child's brutal honesty. Kneeling, she pulled Emily into a tight hug, desperately trying to hold back the tears that threatened to overflow. "It's beautiful, Emily. I'll keep it forever." The girl returned the hug with surprising strength, her small arms wrapping around Megan's neck as if she could, through sheer force of will, prevent her from leaving. Rowan watched the scene in silence, a painful lump in his throat. The image of the two, Megan with her eyes closed, hugging his daughter as if she were her own flesh and blood, would be etched in his memory forever, he knew. A soft cry came from the bedroom, announcing that Liam had woken up. Megan gently pulled away from Emily, quickly wiping away an escaped tear. "I'll go get Liam," she said, her voice trembling. "Oh, the pancakes are almost ready." Breakfast unfolded in a strange atmosphere, a mix of forced normality and suppressed emotion. Emily ate little, her eyes constantly returning to Megan and Liam, as if trying to memorize every expression, every gesture. Rowan kept up a superficial conversation, discussing the weather, commenting on the pancakes, anything to fill the suffocating silence. Liam, oblivious to the tension around him, laughed and clapped his little hands on his high chair tray, occasionally tossing pieces of pancake to the floor with childish glee. After breakfast came the moment they all dreaded. Megan went to get the suitcases, while Rowan put the small luggage in the car. They had agreed that he would drive them to the shelter, a final kindness he had insisted on. At the front door, Emily handed Liam her favorite teddy bear, the one she had initially lent him and was now offering as a permanent gift. "So you remember me," she explained to the baby, who grabbed the toy with a happy gurgle. The final goodbye was quick, out of necessity, not choice. Prolonging it would only make it more painful. Megan hugged Emily one last time, whispering promises of visits and phone calls. Rowan watched silently, his face a carefully neutral mask hiding the storm within. In the car, the silence was deafening. Liam, sensing the heavy atmosphere, was unusually quiet in his car seat. Megan stared out the window, her eyes fixed on the passing familiar landscape, trying to burn every detail into her memory. "You know you can change your mind," Rowan said finally, when they were halfway to the shelter. "At any time." Megan just nodded, unable to trust her voice at that moment. The farewell at the shelter was brief and awkward. Rowan helped her with the suitcases, exchanged a few words with the facility coordinator, kissed Liam on the forehead. When it was time to say goodbye to Megan, words felt inadequate, insufficient. "Thank you," he said at last, his voice low and intense. "For everything." Megan nodded, her green eyes shining with unshed tears. "No, thank you. For everything." For a moment, they stood there, on the threshold of something important, left unsaid. Then, with a final wave, Rowan returned to his car and drove away, watching in the rearview mirror as Megan and Liam grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared from view. The drive home was even quieter. Emily was waiting at the door, her anxious eyes searching for something that wasn't there. When Rowan got out of the car alone, she didn't ask anything, just nodded once, like an adult accepting a difficult truth, and went back inside. The hours that followed had a surreal quality, as if time were moving through a denser medium. Rowan tried to maintain a routine, lunch, helping Emily with her homework, a movie on the couch. But the absence was almost a physical presence in the house, a vacuum that absorbed sound and color. There was no longer the smell of home-cooked food on the stove. There was no longer the sound of Liam's walker in the hallways. There was no longer Megan's laughter echoing from the kitchen. The house had returned to silence. But it wasn't the peaceful silence from before, when they lived in their routine of two. It was a heavy, oppressive silence that highlighted every absence, every empty space where there should have been life. The absence is heavy. That night, when he finally put Emily to bed, Rowan noticed she had taken one of the blouses Megan had forgotten and was hugging it as if it were a stuffed animal. He didn't say anything, just kissed her forehead and turned off the light. The next day, the house felt even emptier, if that was possible. Emily was quiet, responding only when directly questioned, her once colorful drawings now dominated by shades of gray and blue. Rowan caught himself several times, stopping in the middle of an action, as if expecting to hear Megan's voice or Liam's babbling. The silence that followed was always a painful reminder of reality. On the second day after their departure, Rowan was in the kitchen preparing a simple dinner, sandwiches, the most he could motivate himself to make, when his gaze fell on the refrigerator. There, held by a colorful, star-shaped magnet, was the drawing Emily had made weeks ago, the four of them holding hands under a bright sun. "My family," read the caption in childish letters. Rowan stood motionless, absorbing every detail of the drawing as if seeing it for the first time. The figure of Megan with her big smile, Liam small by her side, himself taller, and Emily between them, joining everyone together. A family, not just a temporary arrangement, a practical solution to a difficult situation. A real family, with all its complexities, challenges, and above all, love. The realization hit him with physical force. The longing he felt wasn't just for the practical help Megan represented, or the pleasant company. It was for her, her smile, her strength, her kindness. It was for Liam, his happy gurgles, his small daily discoveries, the pure joy he radiated. It was for the sense of completeness he had experienced in recent weeks, something he didn't even know was missing until he found it, and then lost it. The decision formed in his mind with crystalline clarity. Without hesitation, he grabbed the car keys and called for Emily. "Let's go out for a bit, princess." Emily's blue eyes lit up with a spark of hope. "Are we going to see Megan and Liam?" "Yes, Rowan confirmed, surprised at how easily his daughter had read his intentions. "We're going to try." In the car, Emily regained some of her usual liveliness, asking questions about the shelter, about how long Megan and Liam would stay there, if they could visit them often. Rowan answered vaguely, his heart racing with what he planned to do. He hadn't rehearsed a speech, hadn't prepared logical arguments. For the first time in a long time, he was purely following his heart. The shelter was an old but well-kept building, with a small garden out front where a few children played under supervision. At the reception, a middle-aged woman looked at them curiously. "We came to see Megan Collins and her son Liam," Rowan explained. "They arrived the day before yesterday." The woman consulted a list. "Yes, they're here. I'll check if she can have visitors right now." The minutes of waiting felt like an eternity. Emily held Rowan's hand tightly, rocking back and forth in anticipation. Finally, the door opened, and Megan appeared, Liam in her arms. She looked tired, her blonde hair tied back in a makeshift ponytail, but her eyes widened in surprise when she saw them. "Rowan, Emily, what are you doing here?" Before Rowan could answer, Emily let go of his hand and ran to Megan, hugging her legs tightly. "We came to get you." Megan looked at Rowan, confusion and something else, hope, in her green eyes. "Can we talk?" Rowan asked softly. "Just for a few minutes." Nodding, Megan led them to a small inner courtyard, where a few tables and chairs offered minimal privacy. Emily immediately reached for Liam, who smiled upon recognizing her, and Megan allowed the girl to hold him, supervising closely as they moved a few steps away to see a small fish in the ornamental pond. "Is everything okay?" Megan asked, concern in her voice. "Did something happen?" Rowan took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "Yes, something happened. The house is empty without you." "Rowan?" "No, please, let me finish," he interrupted gently. "These past 2 days have been revealing, not just for me, but for Emily too. We realized something we probably should have realized a long time ago." Megan waited, her eyes fixed on his. "Megan, you weren't just shelter, you were life. You brought something to our home, to our lives, that we didn't know was missing until you arrived." He paused, searching for the right words. "Emily needs you. Your kindness, your patience, your example." He took a step forward, closing the distance between them. "I need you too. Your strength, your smile, the way you make every space brighter just by being in it." His voice was choked now, but he continued, "Please, come back to our home. Not as a temporary arrangement, not as a solution to a problem. As family." Megan blinked rapidly, tears threatening to fall. "Rowan, are you sure? I don't want it to be out of pity, or—" "It's out of love," he said simply. "Mine for you, Emily's for both of you, and I hope that maybe you feel something similar too." For a long moment, Megan was silent, her eyes never leaving his. Then, slowly, a smile formed on her lips. Not the restrained smile of the past few days, but a full, radiant smile that reached her eyes and lit up her entire face. "Yes," she answered, the simple word carrying the full weight of a promise. "Yes, I do." Emily, who had quietly approached with Liam, looked from one to the other expectantly. "Does that mean they're coming home, Daddy?" Rowan looked at Megan, the question in his eyes. "Yes, Emily," Megan replied, reaching out to touch the girl's face. "We're coming home, to our home." The smile that lit up Emily's face at that moment was like the sunrise after the longest of nights, pure, bright, and full of the promise of a new day. And so, in the same place where they had parted just 2 days before, a family was reunited. Not by chance or necessity, but by choice, by love. Megan, surprised and moved, accepted the invitation with a smile that said more than any words could express. A smile that spoke of new beginnings, of second chances, of silences that finally found a voice. The late afternoon sun draws golden rectangles on the living room rug. Liam, almost a year old, clings to the edge of the sofa, his chubby little legs trembling with the effort to stand. His blue eyes shine with determination as he looks at Emily, kneeling a few steps away. "Come on, Liam," she calls softly, her arms outstretched. "You can do it." Rowan lowers his newspaper, watching the scene. He got home from work half an hour ago, now always before 5, and is still wearing his dress shirt, though the tie has already been abandoned. With a little cry of courage, Liam lets go. For a moment, he sways like a small tree in the wind. Then he takes a step, then another, wobbling toward his sister. "He's walking," Emily exclaims. "Megan, Liam is walking by himself." From the kitchen emerges Megan, drying her hands on a dish towel, her blonde hair in a messy bun. Her eyes light up as she sees Liam complete his journey into Emily's open arms. "My champion," she exclaims, kneeling to applaud. Liam, pleased with all the attention, claps for himself, loses his balance and falls sitting down with a soft thud. Instead of crying, he laughs, a sound of pure joy that fills the room. "We need to celebrate," Rowan declares, picking Liam up and lifting him into the air. "Dinner's almost ready," Megan smiles, her eyes meeting Rowan's in silent communication. "Emily has been an amazing helper today. I made the sauce all by myself," the girl announces proudly. At 7 tall, she has grown a few inches in the last few months. "Well, Megan helped me with the stove, but I mixed everything." "I can't wait to try it," Rowan replies, putting an arm around his daughter's shoulders. In the kitchen, the table is already set for 4. A colourful tablecloth covers the wooden surface, with matching plates and folded napkins, small touches that turn meals into special moments. The aroma of freshly baked lasagna fills the air, mingling with the smell of garlic bread. "Sit here next to me, Liam," Emily insists, helping to place her little brother in his high chair. She has taken on the role of big sister with surprising devotion, always attentive to the baby's needs. The meal proceeds with the comfortable familiarity of a well-established routine. Stories of the day are shared. Emily's swimming lesson, a difficult client Rowan had to calm, a new recipe Megan tested at the cafe where she works 3 mornings a week. And then the teacher said my drawing of the family was the best in the class," Emily reports, her chest puffed with pride. "I drew us at the park, near that pond with the ducks." "We have to go there on Sunday," Rowan suggests, pouring more juice for Emily. "The weather is supposed to be perfect for a picnic." "Just like in my drawing," the girl exclaims, her blue eyes sparkling. "Can we bring that chocolate cake Megan makes?" "Of course, we can," Megan agrees, wiping a bit of sauce from Liam's chin. After dinner, while Emily helps clear the table and Megan prepares Liam's bath, Rowan sits on the back porch, watching the sky turn pink and purple. 6 months have passed since that day at the shelter, when he found the courage to ask Megan and Liam to come back, not as guests, but as family. 3 months since the simple wedding in the garden of this very house, with Emily scattering flower petals down the aisle. A wedding not from a fairy tale, but a real one, with a history, with scars, with a deep understanding of the value of what they had found together. The door opens and Megan joins him, sitting beside him. The simple ring on her left hand reflects the sunset's light. "What are you thinking about?" she asks, resting her head on his shoulder. "About how unpredictable life is," he replies, intertwining their fingers. "About how a chance meeting on a cold sidewalk can change everything." From inside the house come the sounds of Emily's laughter and Liam's excited squeals during his bath, the soundtrack of their lives now. The house pulses, not just with sounds and movements, but with something deeper, more essential. It pulses with life in its most authentic form. It is not a perfect house. There are scattered toys, bills to pay, daily challenges to face. There are hard days. There are occasional arguments. There are worries about the future. But now, in every room, there is presence. The antidote to the loneliness that had defined both Rowan and Megan. There is affection, not just spoken, but demonstrated in thousands of small daily gestures. And perhaps most importantly, there is truth, the freedom to be exactly who they are, with all their strengths and frailties. The home is complete, not because everything is perfect, but because now there is presence, affection, and truth. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.